It is tax season. It's tax day as of this very moment. And if you're looking for ways to start your own business and you're thinking about using your tax refund to help you do that, listen up. This episode is for you. Imagine you were working from anywhere, whether it was the beach or a coffee shop or like me out on my back porch most afternoons or much of the time. Imagine you could do that. You could own your business and you could start that business with money that you had or you were about to receive. It's tax season and most people will be getting a tax refund. According to the IRS, it's like 59 million people. And today I want to talk about how you can fund your business with your tax fund or use it to really increase the amount of growth that you're seeing and get you going. And today I have on the show with me one of my oldest and dearest friends, Jason Beaton. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm doing great. Ellery, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Thank you for asking. Jason and I have known each other, what is it, like since 2015? So 12 years? 13 years?
Oh, pushing 11 years.
11.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. We met in college, and he and I both have this passion for helping other people, starting an online business, controlling our own destiny. And one of my readers suggested the idea of doing an episode or a blog post about how to use this tax refund. And I thought, well, don't just take it from me. How about we have somebody else on the show? And then Jason came immediately to mind, and I wanted to have him talk about it. So, Jason, have you used, just before we get started, have you used a tax refund to do anything business related before?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, Ellery, because that's exactly how I started my business 5 years ago, was with a tax refund check. You know, my wife and I filed early, really like early February. So we got that refund back pretty dang quick. And that's what I used to fund my brick and mortar business. So yeah, absolutely. And each year it seems to go, if the family's not growing by one or two, each year it goes to just get something new for the business. Not new, but one of those great tools that can help accelerate the growth.
Well, I wish I had that idea when I started for people who've been listening for any amount of time or reading the blog, I started in January of 2012, so before tax season, and I started everything with the idea that I just kind of wanted this to be a hobby. And well, it's obviously grown way beyond that. And again, one of my readers, listeners, Maddie, said, "Hey, do you have a blog post that helps people get their business started using a tax refund?" She said, "Well, the average tax refund is around $3,000. So on the IRS website, and I'm not going to get boring, but in 2013, there were 58 million people who got a tax refund. I don't know what happened to the other 100 million, by the way. There's 350 million people. I don't know why only less than 60 million are getting a tax refund. That went up a little bit in 2014, but the average refund in 2013 was $2,944, 2014 $3,034. So if it follows the math, it'll be just under $3,100 here in 2015. And I thought, what a really cool idea. This suggestion from Maddie. Well, my first response was, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about tax. I barely understand enough to handle it myself. And in fact, on a personal level, my wife does everything. I don't know. Does your wife do all of your taxes, or is that something that falls in your thing, your to-do list?
Yeah, I'm the one that controls that in our house, just because I've done it before, and we do it all online. So.
We do too, and Ashley has done it for 100% since we got married, and probably did mine maybe before then. So I don't think I had a tax or a login to TurboTax or whatever until this year, and she ended up just kind of rolling it all into her to-do list. So anyway, so I wanted to break it down into, if you have a tax refund that's around $500 or less, around $1,000 or less, $1,500, so on, and then kind of like a Kickstarter would, where, if you buy the Big Daddy plan, you get all of everything from all the plans before it. To kind of take that approach with with how we can leverage our tax refund or our I want to say tax credit, but that's not the right thing. The return or whatever you want to call that, and leverage that into your business. The first thing before you do anything else, if you don't have the basics of your business set up, my first suggestion would be to buy a domain. What do you think, Jason? Would that be where you would start?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely put some thought into that, and because that's really where begin to build your presence, your platform all begins is that domain name.
And you can change domains as I have done. And have you ever changed domains, or is that something you've done before?
Oh yeah, definitely. And my business is very fluid. I've probably changed domains, 4 or 5 times now. It seems like each year I'm coming up with a different way to promote and structure my business. So probably a little more fluid than it needs to be, but yes, definitely so.
Well, since they're so cheap, I mean, I bought for a live event series that I'm doing. I bought I don't remember actually the URL, but it was 99 cents on GoDaddy. And I've paid up to $15 per year for some other ones. So buying a domain, even though you've got maybe this up to $500 tax credit, a domain doesn't have to cost a whole lot of that. And one of my friends here in the Round Rock area, Nicole S. Cooper, I see a new URL from her almost every week. Something with success and CEO or whatever.
Yeah, those domain names, is because they are so inexpensive, are a great way to kind of brand a product or brand a program, if you will. So yeah, very, very simple.
Yeah, well, actually, to that point, you can direct a URL to a landing page, for example. Like if I had ElleryLoves.com and have it route to a thank you page or something crazy like that. But the point being is, with a domain, it doesn't have to cost a whole lot of money. And what I wanted to throw out to people who are out there thinking, well, I've got a Facebook page, or I've got an Etsy page, or I've got a LinkedIn profile that's just epic. That's not going to cut it. You need a place to call your own, and where you own everything. And I buy from GoDaddy. Where do you buy from, Jason?
Yeah, GoDaddy. It's kind of the number one place, so it's easy to remember.
Yeah, it may or may not have anything to do with Danica Patrick.
Yeah, or the original GoDaddy ads, either one of those.
Or, oh man, I love the ones with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Volvo or whatever. And he did Volvo before GoDaddy, but
those ones for GoDaddy were awesome.
Like he's in the back of a bakery shop or a donut shop, and there's punches and flour, and it's pretty hilarious. But so I buy from GoDaddy, and then that leads us right into the next one that you have to have this if you are going to have a business, and that's hosting. So I buy all of my domains from GoDaddy, and then I host all of my domains with Bluehost. So if you go to empoweredpodcast.com/80 for episode 80, you'll see all of these links that we're talking about. Yes, most of them are affiliate links, but that's because I use most of these products anyway myself and recommend them. So it's not just me throwing out a bunch of affiliate links, but it's for stuff that I actually use. So again, I buy all my links or my URLs from GoDaddy and forward them all to Bluehost or to specific pages on Bluehost. How would you explain hosting to someone who doesn't know what it is?
To me, hosting is kind of like your house. So you have your address, which is like your URL, but your actual physical house is kind of what I call hosting. It's where your address is, or I would say what creates your address. So just a place for you to store the website.
Yeah, it's like someone gave me that analogy a long time ago, where I was trying to figure out the best way to explain hosting. It's just the storage. It's where you upload your files to, your music, your images, your podcast episodes, although you need dedicated hosting for that. But all of the posts and things that go into what you would see on a website, that is what is stored on your host. So whereas a domain is, I don't know, $1 for the first year, $1 to buy it, and then maybe 10 to 15 every year beyond that. hosting is really one of the larger expenses, I think, when you're first starting. I think at Bluehost, the one that I recommend, it gets down to $4 a month if you buy 3 years up front. And that's $142 and change, I think.
Yeah, and the reason you have hosting is that way you don't have to have a closet in your house with a huge server in it that everybody in the world can ping. So that's kind of the purpose for hosting, is they take care of all that for you.
Yeah, and it's a server. And a server, layman's terms, is a beefed up fancy computer, and it's off in someone else's closet, for lack of a better term. And if there's weather or something like that at your house and your internet goes down, that's not really going to happen if you have hosting with somebody else. I know one of my listeners, Rocco, uses Squarespace for his website, and I don't think you can use that for anything other than the Squarespace platform. Whereas I recommend WordPress. I know, Jason, you use WordPress, and by hosting it on your own, it gives you that flexibility. I will give everybody a disclaimer and a word of caution: don't go for those. Get a free domain with hosting options. Usually they're like, oh, you can save a little bit of money, but it's really hard to move things around if your business scales or whatever. Because I don't know for a fact if you actually own the domain. If you do that, do you know?
I don't know, but I have chose that one option one time before, and it is a completely different experience. Guys, we're not talking about rocket science. We're talking about hosting. It's very simple. I mean, Ellery's got some great tutorials on it, I know. I echo what Ellery's saying. Do not use that managed WordPress hosting. If you're going to go the WordPress route, do standard hosting. You have so much more flexibility in what you can do with your website.
Yeah, and hosting is real easy, and at most it's going to save you like $10 a year.
Right.
I mean, so it's not even going to save that much, but the amount of flexibility and control that you have goes way down. Themes. After that, you've got the domain, you've got the hosting. Then you're looking at a professional theme. Do you like free themes? Do you like professional themes? The pros? What's your thoughts there?
So I know you had this experience as well, but I start off with a free theme. Once again, you kind of bootstrapping the business, right? So you start off with what you can, and then as soon as I could, I got that professional theme. They're so much easier to work in. If you need to change a color, they're very well supported, especially if you use something like a Studio Press theme or an Optimized Press. They are so supported. You're going to have answers instead of just trying to figure it out and kind of hack your way through a site. So definitely a professional thing. Not to mention all the SEO benefits. So definitely.
That I didn't even think about that, because I converted over to Studio Press in 2013, I think, and there's questions that we have, and of course I like the detail stuff. I like going in and making all the tweaks and the changes and everything. And Studio Press has a pretty robust forum, and I think they're one of the top 3 most popular theme architectures in all of WordPress. So there's a big community out there who would do that. And again, I do like the Studio Press. Whenever I changed, I got a boost in speed. I think it was like a 40% boost. Mm-hmm. And the thing with the free themes is, yes, they are free. The premium ones, I think they're coded better. And definitely. I don't know. You think so?
Absolutely. They're coded much cleaner. They're more up to date. So as codes change, or for instance, HTML,
or WordPress updates for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then a premium domain or a premium theme, you are almost guaranteed that theme to be responsive and HTML5 coded, which all that means is your site is going to look fantastic on mobile.
And that's something that's pretty key. Google just announced by the end of April 2015. So if you're listening to this beyond that, you're already under this new Google law, if you will, that they're going to start prioritizing in search. When you pull up your phone, you go to the Google app or whatever, and you type in a search term, Google will give you sites that are mobile friendly and could potentially hide altogether or put them on the basically wasteland that is page 2. Nobody wants to be on page 2. But if your site's not mobile responsive, good luck getting any any traffic. So again, all of these links and some of the more information that Jason and I are talking about, empoweredpodcast.com/80/80, and you can see what we're talking about. And again, these are my real recommendations for what I would do if I had a $500 return coming. The next one, better software. And I didn't do this for a long time, but I know, Jason, you were one of those people that convinced me that Optimized Press was the way to go.
Yeah, Optimized Press is a piece of software that sits on top of your theme, or it can be your theme. It's kind of very flexible there. But really, it saves so much time in creating your pages that look awesome. So whether it's a sales page or a landing page or a thank you page, it makes it so much easier to make a professional looking site and page without having to hire somebody out.
That was my biggest challenge. Again, trying to bootstrap everything, trying to do everything myself. I could get it like 80% of the way there,
right?
But it wouldn't look amazing. And again, we're talking about building a business here, and again, that's the purpose of the tax refund. Hopefully, you're using that to invest in something instead of just going on one of those vacations with a $10 Coke and a $20 sandwich. If you really want to make this a business, you've got to provide something that looks good and again is mobile responsive. Which, by the way, Studio Press themes, your first one's usually like $100, and then after that they range from 40 to 60 or 70. I forgot to mention that, but so for $100 you can get this Optimized Press. I use both, and my blog and podcast and everything, most of what you see, like if you were to go to empoweredpodcast.com and see the list of podcast episodes, that is Genesis. But if you went to one of my landing pages, like /30 days for my course, that is an Optimized Press landing page. It's got the pop-up, it's got some of like the check boxes and the arrows and some of those fancier themes that really help people convert, or help you as the site owner or the business owner convert visitors to customers.
Yeah, Optimized Press really adds the wow factor. And so the images, the links, the continuity, it's all there. And that's what really, at least in my experience, has been a difference maker between trying to get it yourself. As I already said, you can get it 80% of the way, but then adding that extra 20% to really make it pop and really make it wow is so worth the $100 investment for your business.
Now, I know why I went this direction, but why Optimized Press over something like was it Lead Pages?
Yeah, so for me, Optimized Press is a one-time purchase versus a monthly subscription for it. And they do have They do have an option for a membership to get more themes or templates. But for me, it was that one-time purchase, and versus Lead Pages, that was more of a invested cost every month. I think that if I was going to do it, I'm kind of an all or nothing type guy. It's $60, $70 a month, and I just don't. I don't want to cut that cash flow out of my business, especially where it's at right now, where every penny is kind of reinvested back in the business. So, for sure.
And to be perfectly honest, hopefully this doesn't get me in trouble, but Lead Pages is pretty public with their results. What converts better over, A or B, red versus blue. I just got a Halo reference there. But, green buttons versus orange buttons or something. And they're pretty public about that, which is what's made them successful. You can take that knowledge and apply it to Optimized Press. And they even shared a high converting webinar page. I'm pretty sure we could build that same thing. It would take us a little bit of time. But, $100 one time for 3 licenses. I bought 10 for $200. That's a lot more cost effective than, like you said. I think if you buy a year at a time, it's like $67 a month, and maybe it drops to 40 something if you buy a couple years in advance. But either way, the point is those are some key things here. Where if you've got a $500 return, that's a great way to invest that back into growth of your business. And I want to point out a couple things. One is we didn't talk anything necessarily about WordPress, because WordPress is free. All of this other stuff runs on WordPress. How would you explain that? What, like WordPress is, could you call that the engine or the frame of the car? What would you call it?
Yeah, it's kind of the frame, the chassis. That's what everything is built upon, is that WordPress language, if you will. It makes it very turnkey to switch out themes and coding and all that fun stuff. That way you don't have to do it. That's the biggest thing. WordPress is designed for people like us who don't code, don't know what code is.
Oh, we didn't when we started anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We kind of learned it on the way. So WordPress is free. There are, in addition to what we talked about so far, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of free plugins that are out there. I've used a ton. I have a blog post. We'll get that in the show notes about 21 WordPress plugins that I use for business. There's something out there for everybody. And before we wrap up, the $500 or $500 refund. What else would you add on to there?
That's a great list, Ellery. The other thing that I think I might want to mention is, we talked about the how to get your site set up essentially and kind of create your platform. I know that especially in that 21 plugins list that you have, that's a great resource for anybody looking to optimize their time. Maybe with, I know like the AppSumo stuff. I know that you've got some stuff on there. It's amazing plugins that save you time and help automate so many of these things that we haven't really talked about or dive deeper. But automation is, for me, it's one of the keys to keeping a hands-off business once it gets up and going.
Yeah, and if you're looking to start off, if you can find ways to I won't say optimize, but that works too. But automate.
There you go.
Tasks that you're going to be doing on a regular basis. Like every podcast episode I have, the show notes starts off as a template, and I just have what we talked about in a list of bullet points, and I paste that from Evernote into WordPress and fill it out. And it's just, I don't want to go in and type in all of this stuff. So automation's a good one. The last couple things for the 500, I'd say go on a date with your spouse or your significant other, whatever. Because if you're going for this, you're about to it's going to take over your nights and weekends. Hopefully, if you want to really make this work, it's a big time investment. So either take them out for dinner as a thank you for putting up with you for the last year, or as an advanced thank you for what's about to come. There's a bunch of books that I would recommend. Just off the top of my head, Think and Grow Rich. We were talking about before we started the podcast. We're talking about Michael Hyatt's Platform. The Platform book from Michael Hyatt. How to Win Friends and Influence People. The Millionaire Messenger. And Ashley's going to love all these that I'm rattling off for the show notes page. But there's so many good books out there, and it's a great way for you to have virtual mentors. And when a book's $7 to $10, you can kind of fill in the extra cash that you may have from a $500 return. For the $1,000, if you got $1,000 coming, what would you do? Where would you lead off if you knew you were going to get an extra $1,000 on April 15th? Isn't that tax day? Isn't that the right day?
Yeah, that's when they're all due by. Your stuff typically comes in 3 or 4 weeks later.
Okay. So if you're submitting it and 3 or 4 weeks later, you're going to get an extra $1,000.
There you go.
An extra, was it Benjamins? 100 or 10 Benjamins? What would you do with that?
Yeah. So for me, it's going to be really start to invest more into marketing. That's honestly that's where my any extra revenue that I generate goes into is marketing. So whether it's investing into Facebook ads or investing into Google ads, I think that's key. In addition to maybe getting an extra tool, like your microphone, if you're a podcaster, maybe you're trying to use your just your iPhone mic, which is great. Keep doing it, or your headset. Ellery's wrote a great book on how to get a great podcast for under $200. So that's if podcast is one of those things that you're looking to get into, there you go. There's your Kickstarter.
Which, by the way, we are both using the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 microphone right now, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm using.
Yeah, that's what I'm using. And it's a fantastic microphone. I think I got mine for $50 or $60 off of Amazon. So it's very affordable, and that's just kind of the keystone piece for creating a great podcast.
Yeah, starting with audio, I think my Yeti may have died. I don't know if I've released it yet. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but I've got an episode coming up, and I thought it was just a tech issue, but my microphone was going out. So I got to test to make sure it works. The audio quality is just fine, but start with good audio. So that's a great one. I throw out conferences.
Yeah,
I think if you've got the $1,000 refund, the tax return, and you've done these other things, if you've got the domain, the hosting, all the other things we just talked about, we go to conferences. I was talking to a friend, Renee, up in Chicago, and Renee is going to a food bloggers conference. And not only is she getting to meet some really cool people, which I think she has on her schedule to meet with Alicia Silverstone, the actress from Clueless. And yeah, so apparently that girl is a vegan, vegetarian, something, and Renee is going to have the chance to meet her, but all because she is getting out of the house and going to a conference. So just a few that I would recommend. Podcast movement, it's good for any entrepreneur, I think. Not only is we're talking about the microphones and everything, but podcasting is a great marketing tool for your business, but podcast movement specifically is more than just podcasting. That tidbit or some of the things I've learned about lead pages, I learned from a session at Podcast Movement. It didn't have a whole lot to do. I mean, it had to do with podcasting, but it applied to a larger piece of the business. Are you going to be able to go to Podcast Movement this year?
I don't.
You guys talked about it?
We're still in the planning phases. We're trying to take a big family trip out to Florida this year, so that may fall right there at the end of July with Podcast Movement.
That would suck.
Yeah, that's.
I'd love it. It's fun. It's going to be in Fort Worth this year. Last year it was in Dallas. A couple of my friends started that, and it had like 600 people the first year. And this year, everybody and their dog and mother, and probably their dog's mother, are going. And I think it's $200, $300 or $400 for the ticket, depending on how early you buy it. But that's a great one. New Media Expo. That's kind of where I fell into my groove and realized that this world of online business was possible. And this applies to all conferences too, but surrounding yourself with like-minded people and people who are doing what you want to do, and realizing that all of these things are possible.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned conferences, because they are like a shot in the arm. So conferences to me kind of do two things. Number one is they help you believe, because there's stories there. You'll meet people from every walk of life that you wouldn't even imagine you can make, a living or even share about a topic, like eating chocolate covered ants. But there's stories out there like that. And it's so cool to see. It just helps you believe. It's that shot in the arm. And if you can get one or two conferences in a year to kind of help swing your momentum from quarter to quarter, or just that yearly momentum, do it. Conferences are amazing to be able to do that and connecting the people.
Yeah, I wish I'd been able to go to NMX this year, and just seeing everybody all excited and everything. I know it needs to be back on my agenda for 2016. And then there's World Domination Summit. Never been, but people seem to really love that one. Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. WDS is up in Portland, Oregon. Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. And Michael Stelzner usually throws in something crazy like happy hour on an aircraft carrier or something. That seems pretty cool. If you got $1,000, join a mastermind. Not all of them are for fee. You can find free ones or start free ones. I charge for mine, and everybody seems to really enjoy those. You get out what you put in, but again, it's like the conference experience, but surrounding yourself with those like-minded people, having a place to be accountable and share your ideas and get support and feedback. And the last thing that I would suggest for if you got $1,000, pay off your debt. If $1,000 would do it, if $1,000 would pay off whatever debt that you have in your head right now, Jason, would you just knock it out?
Absolutely. Whether it's just one that extra credit card sitting out there, or maybe a loan to your parents, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's the last $1,000 on your car. Get it done, because that's one less thing, one less stressor every month you have to worry about, and one less thing that could kind of sneak up on you later. And as we mentioned earlier, that monthly cash flow is the key, whether it's personal or business. That's the key to financial success, is that monthly cash flow and keeping it as clean as possible.
Yeah, when we paid off my car, not the one I currently have, I got in a wreck and had to buy my SUV. But I loved having that. It was the last debt other than our house. And it sucked. I love my car now, but it sucked having to go back and take out a loan to get it. But it's just debt seems to, the borrower is a slave to the lender, as it says. And I definitely agree. If you're going to get a $1,500 cash refund, I want to say cash refund, but that's not right. If your tax refund is $1,500. What would you do with that?
See, now you're really stretching the imagination of some folks, because the largest refund I've ever had is like $500. So,
yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so
I mean, this just means that you're keeping more during the year, and you've planned a little bit better. If you're getting $1,500 back, that means you gave a $1,500 loan to the government, and they're not paying you any interest whatsoever.
Exactly, and that's kind of I think Eller, I think you and I kind of were taught that at the exact same time. So we've in our family, we've tried to employ it ever since. But if you were to expect a nice chunk of change like that to come in, that's when honestly, if you didn't have a plan for it, I would sit on it. And the reason why is because you may have all these great ideas in your head, and if you're like myself, I love gadgets and I love gizmos and I love tech. So, I mean, if I had that, I'd grab the best video gear I could, the best green screen gear I could, just some of those things that isn't necessarily needed to really develop your business, but they're such fun toys,
Yeah, I hear good things about those $400 GoPros, and I would love like the new Nexus Android tablet or
new phone.
Oh, hey, I got that. That's coming. That one's on the list, but I think that's more important than we give it credit for. But we'll get there in just a second. I'm thinking. So again, if you've got these other things, if you've done everything up until this point, and you're looking for kind of that next level of putting money into your business, Jason just mentioned advertising, which I'm not all that great about. So I do more of the passive advertising, but people are making big waves with Facebook ads. John Dennis, for example, knows a lot about retargeting, Amy Porterfield, Facebook ads, some of those other things. But if you've got all of that and you got this $1,500 coming in, I got to throw Camtasia in there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Camtasia is an amazing piece of software. It lets you very easily edit video, among other things, just like the pros do. It's so easy to use.
What's that, screen capture? Well, I edit video taken from my phone and other things as well, but the screen capture is the big one for me.
Yeah, so whether you're like doing a voiceover for a PowerPoint or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly right. And in, what episode was it? It was 77 with Lauren Gaggioli. She does online training of SAT and ACT courses, and she uses that as well to develop her training material. I can't say with what percentage, but I would say a good chunk of people who have that text overlaid on a screen, or they have recorded their screen, it's probably done with Camtasia.
Oh yeah,
or was it ScreenFlow?
Yeah, ScreenFlow for Mac. They're very similar products. For the longest time I used Camtasia version 6, and just recently upgraded to that. I believe it's the version 8 that allows for a little more fun with video and with pictures, and it's a great product to really help develop a training, like you said, training material.
I'll have to make another piggyback suggestion on that. When you are looking at some of the software, and your software is getting to the point where it's a generation or two behind the hardware, like it's 4 or 5 years old, you really owe it to yourself to make that upgrade. You don't want to. I've been there. I did not. I upgraded to Camtasia 8 as well. But I think it's built for today's processors. And without getting all that technical, a few years ago, basically, you had processors that could handle like one pipeline. And so the software was built for processors that could handle one pipeline. Yep. And then you get processors that handle 2, 3, or 4 pipelines. Well, that software, that Camtasia 6 that we were using, still really only used one of those pipelines. So you've got this big engine in your computer and you're not using it. And the first thing that I noticed in upgrading to Camtasia 8, and again, I think it's if you're to buy it new, it's like $200 or something like that. So it's, again, not cheap, but I noticed how much faster I could work. It didn't freeze. I didn't have to restart it every time. After every time I produced a new video, I could add the arrows and everything. And it's just a kind of a side note there, but I think it's valuable, and I got a lot of time back whenever I did.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to ask. Was how much was that time back worth? Was it worth the $200 you paid over the course of the product so far?
Was it also the significant pain in my butt?
Yeah.
Seriously, it would freeze on me it got this way over time. And I think it just, the more and more crap that I had on my computer too, and multiple videos, multiple audio files. So it's great software, but after I produced the file and it got something that I could upload to YouTube, the memory would be full.
Yep.
And so I think it was also only using maybe 4 gigs of memory instead of 8 or something like that. So again, using keeping your stuff up to date and things like that. Just a couple quick ones. I've upgraded. The people in my mastermind groups and my coaching clients have asked for recorded conversations. So I paid the $102 or something for a year to get Zoom conferencing software. Again, this is kind of an accessory, but
and I'm glad you did. As a client and mastermind member myself, I'm certain glad you did, because Google Hangouts is great the way we were doing it, but the ability to just have a phone number to call in on while I'm on the road trying to get to my computer is amazing. And the platform itself is pretty universal between the device. So I'm glad you did that. And then also, I'm glad you mentioned that you paid for a year up front, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're getting that $1,500 or have got the cash to do it, pay. Instead of going for the subscription route, pay up front, because once again, especially early on, you do it one time and now you've got 12 months to build your business before it's due again. And you don't have to worry about that cash flow being stripped every single month out of your operating expenses. So definitely, if you can, I encourage you. You usually get a better deal that way too, right?
I think I got like 2 months free, maybe with them. I know it was 2 months free when I did the buffer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Their awesome plan, I think is what they call it. Some of those other things. You just got to watch out, because 12 months from now you're going to get hit with another $100 bill, and you got to make sure you're like, what is this?
Yeah. So that part is true.
And then with Hangouts, you're limited to 10 people. You can't just automatically record it. And if you start with Hangouts on air, those have become a pain to me sometimes, giving me more than one headache. I really enjoy Get Response, which is $15 a month. That's one that you can't do a year at a time that I know of. But when you're building your business using autoresponders, wanting to really trickle content to people who are on your list, that's one. Aweber's one. MailChimp's another one. MailChimp has a free plan. I outgrew my MailChimp and I made a lot of mistakes trying to send people emails that sometimes they got one they'd already received. Somewhat embarrassing there. I tested out Aweber, finally settled out on Kit Response. We talked about a membership, we talked about a mastermind before. There's also membership options. I know mine and Fizzle Co. are about $34 a month. I think when Michael Hyatt had Platform University opened, I don't know. I tried to look, and I couldn't even find if he was still doing that, so I don't know. But I think his was $25 to $35 per month. I bought a year's worth. This is where I did get that savings for buying a year with Calendly. I don't know. You still work in the corporate environment, Jason. How much of your time would you say you waste back and forth? Are you available at 2:00? No, but I can do 3. Well, I can't do 3, but maybe 4. And just scheduling is a nightmare. How much time would you say you waste time with that?
Every single week. I mean, I visit clients that are outside of an organization. So the ability to, you're right, it's 3 or 4 emails before you finally get an appointment set. And it's so ridiculous sometimes how hard it is to schedule an appointment, because you may be, your corporate email system is A, there is B. A and B hate each other, so they don't talk to each other. So there's no way to do any type of busy search or see if they're available. And it's, for my business, I've used Calendly, and it's amazing. It's so simple. It's there. It's done. It's there.
And pretty much everybody has a Gmail address. I do, even though I don't use it for business, but Calendly syncs with Gmail. And the alternative, I mean, there's a bunch of alternatives. And again, as I did a fair amount of research. And really the most popular one is Schedule Once. Schedule Once is ugly. If you pull up that website, it looks like crap, in my opinion. Some people may disagree, and I don't find it very user-friendly, and I really don't find it mobile-friendly.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, mobile is, you want everything you produce to look good on a mobile device.
You sure do, and again, if you go to the show notes for today, you'll find a link to Calendly. I would love to have an affiliate program for them, because I referred a ton of people their direction. I don't have one. I don't think they have one yet, but I wish they did, because I would have had my year paid for 3 or 4 times, because everybody tries it, loves it. So here's where I kind of feel like skipping a little bit ahead to where if you've got $2,000, $2,500, what you would do with that kind of money. And you had mentioned, Jason, a minute ago about saving the money. That's absolutely a fantastic idea, by the way. I don't have that necessarily on my list of things, but saving the money and paying off debts is definitely a great solution. But here's where we had talked before, and I said we're going to get to it, the new computer. Where would you rank, or under what situations would you spend $1,500 to $2,000 on a new computer?
So I did this recently, as you know, and that's really something I had to answer for myself. And for me, it was a combination of how much time am I losing because it's slow or can't do certain things, along with how portable is it, meaning can I take it wherever I want to, right? And then also, along with being portable, was the coolness factor. As I mentioned before, I love gizmos, and I love just cool things. So
you don't want to go and sit down at Starbucks, grab a table, open your bag, and pull out like this brick of a computer?
Not anymore. No, not anymore. in today's world, it's for me, it's a little too far out there. It's like carrying the brick cell phone once again, or the candy bar style cell phone. They just don't exist anymore.
Gotta have the cool factor. The good thing is, when you do have those cool factor computers, they're usually pretty quick under the hood too.
Exactly.
But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I looked at it. The computer that I have, just so everybody knows, I worked for Dell for 4 years, and while I was there, I used my wonderful employee pricing to get an XPS 12. That's what I have, the one with the little rotating screen. I got i7, 8 gigs of RAM, a 120 gig 128 gig hard drive, and that might have been all of the options that I had available to change. If that doesn't make any sense to you, you're probably not going to be the one buying the computer anyway. But the point of all this comes down to get as fast as you can afford.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I did this too. I did the 128 gig hard drive instead of the 256 because it was a $300 upgrade. Since then, I now know that a 128 is really only like 95 because of how the manufacturer partitions it. You can do a factory reset just like you can do on a phone or other technology items. You can now do that with Windows 8 computers, which is really nice. And I think you might be able to do it with Mac. But I saved that $300, got the smaller hard drive, and I filled mine up a couple times, and I have to be rather diligent about where I keep data, backing it up, and moving it off. So my suggestions on the computer, just remember the i5 or i7, at least 6 gigs of memory, and I would go with the solid state. I wouldn't buy, unless it was just super expensive, I would try not to buy a regular hard drive anymore. If it ends in zeros, it's a regular traditional hard drive. The 128, the 256, the 512s, those are solid states, and they're going to be quite a bit faster. And if this is for your business and you've got this $2,000 refund or return coming and you want to put it towards that, get the fastest computer you can possibly afford. And you can save money on the optical drive, which is the CD, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. You can get add-ons, but really the speed and the processor and the memory are really the two things that you can't upgrade. I mean, technically, yes, you can, but you're not really going to. 99.9% of the world, they're not going to upgrade those things after they buy them.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Get the fastest, the i7, meet in the markets. Processor memory, that's where all your horsepower is done. So as I already said, get the best you can afford there. You can always add, replace your hard drive down the road if you absolutely need to. And I will echo his advice about the solid state. I had a solid state hard drive once. That thing was quick. It was zippy. You didn't have to worry about the drops killing your hard drive because there's no moving platters, no moving parts. The one that I just upgraded to had a quick. It's got a terabyte hard drive, which is awesome, but I can hear the platters spinning. And I can notice the difference once it's up and going. Now, it does have a cool feature where it's got a small solid-state flash drive, if you will, to help boot up quicker. And it does boot up very quick. But once you're in there and moving along, I still hear the hard drive. And if you've learned anything about me through this episode, you realize that the geeky gizmos that I like typically don't do things like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. So again, the ones that have that cool factor usually have some pretty nice stuff in front of them. Ultrabook, that's a term that I think people are still calling them Ultrabooks. I don't know, but make sure you're getting a high resolution screen. PCs, that generally means 1080p on Macs. That's the Retina.
Right.
Just they usually are brighter, which will go better if you're ever outside, and they're also going to give you a clearer picture. Movies and Netflix aside, those displays usually have a better picture than some of the lower ones. A couple model numbers if you're looking. I have the XPS 12. I don't know if they're making that anymore. I looked at the Dell website a couple hours ago, and I didn't see it under XPS options, but they've got a 13 and a 15, which are really fantastic systems. The Precision M3800, that thing, they're not cheap. You can really load those things out. You can put like a Corvette engine in the size of something that's a Miata or something, but those are some really good ones. And then when you're talking about Apple products, because I know a lot of people out there love their Macs, even though under the hood it's the same thing as a PC. I have to go with the MacBook Pro. I don't know if I'd even suggest a MacBook Air. What are your thoughts?
For me, it comes about, where is your office at? Is your office more geared towards coffee shops? Is it more geared towards travel? The hardware is pretty interchangeable now between the Air and the regular Pros. The big difference is the weight, So
Yeah, but those Pros, I'm with you. The Airs are the ones with the commercials a few years ago where they were just like sliding it into that manila envelope.
yeah. Now that could also have been the 11-inch Air, which I believe is too small for me personally. I have a 15-inch laptop. I think for me personally, that's a sweet spot. I've had, personally, I have the Dell XPS 15. I previously owned the XPS 13, and I find myself enjoying the 15 a lot better, even though it's a little bit bulkier. It still has that teardrop design, just like the MacBook Airs do. Plenty of power, and I like the bigger screens.
Yeah, I've got a 12.5-inch screen, and I went with Ultra Mobility. It works great. It can be a little bit small because here I'm in my office right now. I'm looking at two 27-inch monitors, and it's pretty freaking awesome. So the 12-inch compared to that,
right?
It's not a big comparison, but yeah, that 13 or 15. Whenever I did work in selling this stuff, people are like, "Oh, I want as big as possible," but they don't want to carry it. And then that gets back to what we were talking about earlier. I meant to add, you can't really change your processor and your memory. What I meant to say really was you can't change the weight or the speed. If you want to lump the processor and the memory together, you can't really change that, and you can't really change how light it is. And again, we're talking about being able to work on the front porch, being able to take your business on the road wherever you want to go, and you want something that will be thin and light, and that 13, 14, 15-inch seems to really be the sweet spot. Although I don't know that they make 14-inch laptops all that often anymore.
No, I was just on their site yesterday, the day before, and I can't remember an XPS 14 being on there. I mean, I think the 13 and 15 markets have really defined themselves now.
Yeah, because I guess when you're talking about a diagonal screen, how they manage it to bottom left to top right, really between a 13.1, which is what it comes out to like a 15.4 or 14.1, that's a lot of numbers right there for the non-numbers people. It doesn't really add that much real estate, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then just looking at the MacBook Airs, by the way, you are capped at 4 gigs of memory, which goes against what I was recommending a minute ago. And they're i5 capped.
Yeah.
So nothing wrong necessarily with an i5, but you have an i7 in yours,
yes,
right?
Yes, I've got the i7, and that's a great point you just hit on, is you are hard capped. You can't do anything else but that.
Yeah.
You can't go any higher.
That's the problem and honestly, they're kind of expensive. Macs are generally expensive. Yeah, they're great, but like going from on this 13-inch MacBook Pro with the Retina to go from an i5 to an i7 is $200. You add another $200 to go from 8 to 16 gigs of RAM. I guess that's a solid state drive, but it just gets really expensive. And then the last thing that I'd love to hear from you after Jason and I have kind of reviewed all of these things more than once, what you would spend your tax refund on. But the last thing is one of the first things we talked about is the cell phone. I was talking with one of my coworkers at Dell. I shouldn't say because that narrows it down. Who am I talking to? Anybody who knew me at Dell. So I just want to say his name. That'll be for people who read the blog post where I give similar tips. He did not want to upgrade his phone. He had like the iPhone 3GS in the times of the iPhone 5.
Oh, wow.
So a couple years. Well, so it went 3GS, 4S. What is that? 2.5, 3 years after this thing had come out. And I said,
at least probably closer to 4.
It was a long time. And I said, well, why not? Why not upgrade? And he's like, well, I don't want to spend the $200 on it. And he had the money. He could have spent it on any things. I mean, we'd go and we'd spend, $20 or $30 on lunch or something. He had the money. He just didn't want to. And I said, I'm trying not to say his name. I said, so think about this. What do you use more than your cell phone? And he's the type that had his phone in his pocket and his earbuds plugged in like all the time. He just like dangled them from his shirt, whether he didn't have the Bluetooth on or anything like that, but he had his headphone on. But talking, texting, listening to music, and that's the question I'll ask you as you're listening to this. Are you listening to this on your phone? If you are, what else do you use your phone for? If you're not, what device are you on, and do you use it, that device, more than you use your phone? And the answer is probably no. I mean, I don't know how many times during the day my phone is more than 10 feet away from me. And the problem is we think, oh, I'm going to save money on the phone, but every moment we waste waiting for something to load or needing to get information or typing up that email and it's laggy and you just sit there wasting your time, or you don't have a phone that's advanced enough to have podcasts on it like this one, so you're just wasting time sitting in traffic. My question that I'll leave you with, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Jason, is what device do you use more than your cell phone?
Yeah, I'm speechless. Running through the list of devices, unfortunately, I probably have too many for my own good. It's maybe if you work at a place where you're always on the computer, maybe your work computer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe if you wear glasses, you're going to have those on, but I couldn't even say a watch because I'm not wearing my watch right now.
Yeah, I don't wear my watch all the time.
There's so few times when we don't have our phones, and that's a big weak, I don't want to say weakness, but a weak point or a slow point in our productivity when we're waiting on our phones. The Galaxy S6 just came out, and I am just chomping at the bit to go buy one. And it's not just to have the next new gadget, but it's faster. It's more. It allows me to take more of my business on the road than the one that I have. That's a couple years old. I'm not all about just having the latest and greatest, but I don't know. It's just something that I'm looking at. And Ashley was like, "Well, could your business pay for it?" I was like, heck yeah. I can't think of a better, other than my computer, the last two things that we're talking about here, I can't think of a better justification or better business expense than something like that I do so much of my business on and fun time and things like that. It was when I was in Florida going to speak at the podcast group there, my phone was my GPS. It handled my schedule and all those kinds of things. So that's where we'll leave you. If you've got maybe you have the extra $1,000 on top of this $2,000 or $2,500, and you want to invest in coaching, or you want to do the mastermind groups, or pay somebody to build your website for you, something like that. There's always money that you can, or there are always ways that you can spend money to invest in your business. And I would be in trouble with my wife if I didn't at least suggest that you go on a vacation with your family. Because that when I was going through this list, she was like, vacation. So, or something like that. I don't know if I got the tone or the voice right there, but just the quick recap. You've got the domain, you've got the hosting, you've got the software for the landing pages and everything, date night books, a variety of conferences, investing in yourself, those kinds of things, masterminds, memberships, paying off debt, Camtasia, video conferencing, GetResponse, or some way to build an email list and email them on a regular basis, tools like Calendly or Buffer, and then we wrapped up with the new computers. We gave you a couple PC options, a couple Mac options, and then we wrapped up here with the finally the cell phone, the device that we carry with us more than any other time. Is there anything that you would add to the list?
No, I mean, I think we've done a great job kind of covering it for anybody wanting to start their own business or reinvest in their business. And to Ellery's point, if you have maybe you're a couple years into your business already, and you have some of these things, or you just upgraded your phone last fall or something like that, so you've got this here. Invest in yourself, whether it is coaching or it is some type of mastermind. The value you will get out of that is 10 times at least what the monetary value is. So, and those are things that are going to stick with you forever. Those things that you learn in the masterminds and coaching, not like you're going to throw it out in a year and a half.
I absolutely agree. Couldn't agree anymore. So that should be a pretty good list. If you are getting a tax refund and you've decided to use it on something else, head over to empoweredpodcast.com/80. Let me know what you would spend it on, or maybe what you have spent it on. Share your knowledge, your advice, and everything else like that with the listeners. Again, it's empoweredpodcast.com/80, and that'll take you right there. Thanks for spending time with us today, Jason. Can't wait to see you again, whenever that may be, and appreciate you hanging out.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Empowered Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ellery Wells, and I'm glad you're here. I was glad to be able to share that chat with Jason with you guys. What do you do with your tax refund? Do you go on vacation? Do you spend it on bills? Do you pay down your debt? All of those are wonderful things. But if you've used your tax refund to fund your business, or you've gotten money back and you've used it to grow your business, or any of those things, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to know what you have done in the past, what's worked, maybe what hasn't, and if you agree or disagree, I'd love to hear about that as well. So go to empoweredpodcast.com/80 and leave a comment in the show notes. And if you haven't already, I have a request. Go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, find the Empowered Podcast. You can search for my name, Ellery Wells, and you will find my art there. Go in there, and if you would, leave me a rating and review. Just let me know what you think of the show. And if you want to go that extra step, send me an email, Ellery@ElleryWells.com. I read all of those myself, personally, and I just tell me what you think. If you like the show, if you don't like the show, if you have suggestions or recommendations, I'd love to hear those too. And, if you just want to say hello and tell me what you're up to, I would welcome those emails as well. And if you are listening to this live, if you are listening to this before April 22nd, go to my blog, find the Napoleon Hill blog post, and I'm giving away 3 copies of that incredibly awesome book that Napoleon Hill wrote. He published it in 1937. What he has in there is as true today as it was almost 80 years ago, and it's one of my favorite books, and it's one of the very few books that I have read twice, and I'm giving away 3 brand new physical copies. They're paperbacks. I picked them up at Barnes & Noble. Yes, I went to the bookstore. Instead of going to Amazon, I went to actual bookstore, and it smelled like books, and it was awesome, but I don't usually go to actual bookstores. But go to that blog post and click on the link, enter to win, and I'd love to send you a copy of one of my favorite books. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells, and we'll see you next week.